Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. So it is that time again. We do have Sulky Hulky making a return, and for those of you that don't know, Sulky Hulky is our free-to-play locked Marvel Snap account. Each week we go through, we give an update on the account, any progress that we made, as well as pulling all of the cards that we unlocked for the week, and then we build a deck around those cards. And so we're unlocking Marvel Snap one card at a time, all while being free to play and trying to push the limits and see how far we can go. So last week we ended at collection log level 236, and there was something that happened that I just kind of breezed over, and I realized after the fact that I should probably address it. So after collection log level 214, we started pulling in cards from pool 2. So Marvel Snap right now is divided into 3 different pools of cards. So pool 1, lasting from collection log level 18 through 214, consists of some of your starter cards. Pool 2, running from collection log level 222 to 474, is where you start getting into a few more advanced cards, you get a few combo pieces, and then pool 3, from collection log level 474 on, is where you get into the really more advanced cards, you get into some pretty crazy combos, and that's where you start unlocking a lot of your different deck archetypes. And so for our first 2 pool 2 cards, we pulled Scorpion and Morbius last time. So Scorpion recently reduced cost down to 2. We're able to afflict all cards in the opponent's hand with -1. And then Morbius is a discard engine. It is going to get stronger the more cards you discard throughout the game, but to use him optimally, we need a few more resources to make him viable. Okay, and so last week we did end with 350 gold. We are currently up to 450 that we unlocked from the season pass, and we have all of our weekly challenge rewards that we're able to pull. And before I jump in and unlock the weekly challenge rewards, I did want to briefly mention the upgrade system and how to optimally upgrade your cards. So each card to upgrade requires 2 resources. One being credits, which is typically for a main account the biggest limiting factor, because those are limited to what you can earn daily and what you can unlock daily. And then the second one is limited by boosters. To upgrade a card from common to rare all the way up to infinite, it requires a certain number of boosters. And so each time you upgrade, the cost is going to increase up until you get to infinite. And once you get to infinite, you can actually split that card. It comes with a cool card effect, and then it goes back down to common, and then you can upgrade it all over again. And so boosters are unlocked by just playing the game. For each turn that you play, you're going to get 1 booster to a random card in your deck. Unless you're running Agatha from pool 3, she steals all of the boosters if she is in your deck. And so then the last thing I do want to touch on for the upgrade system is that it is always more optimal to upgrade your commons first, because it is a cheaper upgrade to credit cost ratio. So from common to uncommon, you get 1 collection level and it costs 25 credits. Anywhere else on the upgrade track is going to equal 50 credits per collection level gained. So for example, to go from rare to epic, we would gain 4 collection levels, and it would cost 50 credits. So for a ratio of 50 credits per collection level. Common cards are the only ones that you get this discounted ratio. And so if you get a new card, it is always advantageous to run it in a deck. Something that I like to do if I unlock a lot of cards all at once is to throw all of my common cards into a deck together. You're probably going to lose a few games, but you can guarantee that your credits are going to go to those common cards. And then you can gain quite a few upgrades for a lot fewer credits. Okay, and so with that out of the way, I am going to go ahead and upgrade all of the cards I can from our games this week, and then we'll pull a few rewards, we'll see what collection log level we're at, we'll unlock our cards, and then we will build a deck around it. And the last tip I have on upgrading your cards is I recommend always upgrading your most expensive, your highest rarity cards first. That way, if we end up with just a few credits left, let's say we have 100 left, we're going to be able to then go down and upgrade our commons, our uncommons, to use those credits. Whereas if we had upgraded our commons and uncommons first, and then all we had left were epics or rares or infinite, one of the higher rarities that cost more credits, we may end up in a weird spot where we have 200 credits that we don't have any cards with a rarity level low enough for us to use those credits. All right, so we did go on a pretty good spree. We got down to 1,850 credits before we ran out of cards to upgrade. We did claim our rank 40 reward, which was 20 boosters. That got us an additional card upgrade, but now we have a lot of credits to claim, so I'm curious how far up we're gonna go. and then we're still going to be limited by boosters, so we do still need to do quite a bit of grinding. And if you ever run to the point where you're just playing on reset and you are absolutely capped for boosters for your upgrades, the fast upgrade system, I guess, could be viable. But for me, since the biggest limited resource is your credits, I would rather put in a little bit of extra time and grind a little bit more than use them for a bad upgrade ratio. But with that being said, if you are ever capped on your credits and it comes down to either losing your weekly rewards or your daily mission rewards or spending in fast upgrade is an okay option. Okay, so let's claim our weekly rewards. We did start at 1850. We had 3 rewards on the season pass to unlock, all of which were credits because we claimed all of our boosters and everything else along the way. And so we are going to get a pretty big jump there as well. So we are now up to 650 gold, which we can use to reset our daily missions if we ever get to a point where we're not almost capped for credits. But as of right now, we need to grind a little bit more. And so we're just going to conserve our gold for now. And so then on our collection log track, we do have, it looks like 1,000 credits from the rewards. And these are the free rewards. As a reminder, we didn't pay for the premium season pass. We're just collecting the free rewards along the way, just from completing missions and playing the game. And so we are almost back up to cap, and we have no boosters left. So this may be the week where we actually look at the fast upgrade, or I just need to put in some time and grind. So if I can make a deck that feels really, really fun to play, then I'll be able to grind out quite a few games this week. And so the next free unlock that we have, or the last one on the base 50 levels of the season pass, is a card variant. So we'll get a cool variant from the season pass as well once we complete a few more missions. And then if we get to the season caches, those will give us a random reward, whether it be an avatar, credits, gold, a variant. You can get quite a few things from the season caches now, rather than just base credits. Okay, and so with everything cleared out, we have 4,200 credits. So we are almost at that 5,000 cap. We do have a few daily missions to complete today already. And so that's going to get us really close to the cap. We are going to need to do some grinding because we don't have any upgrades left. So if we sort by upgradable, we don't have any upgrades left that we can complete. We did go from last week a collection log level of 236 all the way up to 349. So we are going to get more than halfway through pool 2. And some of the pool 2 cards that are a little bit more impactful or that I still use on my main account for a lot of deck builds. We have Nakia. She offers a buff to all cards that are currently in your hand, so she has really good synergy with like swarm type decks or decks that hold a lot of resources until the very end. Then we have Sunspot. Sunspot is a pretty versatile one-drop card in that he can buff up over time. Now, with entering close to pool 3, we will probably start seeing Killmonger a little bit, and so he becomes a little bit trickier to use. Maybe we need to lock him behind an armor to protect him. And then we have Collector. Collector has a lot of uses, whether it be just a steal your stuff type deck where you're stealing their cards with like Cable, Mantis, and you're just keeping a full hand size yourself, or whether it be a discard deck where you can discard cards and it will buff him up over time. And then we have Infinite. Infinite is a 6 cost card with a massive 20 power, but it has the drawback that you can only play this card if you didn't play cards the previous turn. Now, as you get deeper into pool 3, there's a lot of ways to kind of trick this card out onto the board and cheat it out onto the board faster. Okay, and so with that being said, with our kind of list of kind of high priority, high impactful cards out of the way, let's go ahead and pull our 12 pool 2 cards. And so the first one being Sandman. I thought Sandman was in pool 3, and so Sandman is pretty tough to build around because he does have a cost of 4 and a power level of 1. So maybe we look at rerunning one of the decks we ran recently in an ongoing buff deck, but that depends on what other cards we pull. So Okoye, a decent buff card, but at 2 cost, I found that she's a little clunky for the +1 bonus. Leech, he is another low tempo card. He has a pretty cool on reveal ability, but it just feels low tempo. To use him on turn 5, it doesn't feel like you get a lot of value out of him, or at least not that I've found yet. we have Bucky Barnes, which is a great destruction type card. When he gets destroyed, he will leave a 6 power token in his place. Then we have Infinite. That's check 1 off of our kind of want or high priority list in the Infinite. So as we get deeper into the pool and we start finding ways to kind of trick him out onto the board, he offers a massive amount of power and potential power onto the board. Okay, so next up we have Vision. Vision is kind of tricky to use at 5 cost. Again, as you get later into the pool, he starts to become a little bit more viable because you can trick him onto the board in a few different ways, and then you can move him around to wherever you need more power. We have Ebony Maw, which is pretty good in a ongoing style deck with like our Sandman that we pulled earlier. So that's looking more and more like a possibility here, a pull 2 Sandman deck. Okay, and so next up we have Agent 13, which is a good card for Collector, for Devil Dino, in keeping your hand size big and buffing up your Collector in the process. Then we have Swarm, which is kind of a staple in a lot of discard style decks. And so if we end up maybe pulling the Collector, we have the potential to build a discard style deck here, and Swarm is pretty good in that, but Nakia really helps enable and buff that card up. Okay, so next up we have Vulture, which is a pretty big staple in move style decks. When this card moves, plus 5 power. So offers quite a bit of power for that move style archetype. Okay, our next card, Sabretooth, a good destruction type card in a few niche type decks, but nothing that we're able to build currently. Okay, and so for our very last card, are we gonna check anything else off of the high priority checklist here? We get Storm. Which Storm is a personal favorite of mine. As you get deeper into the collection logs, something like Storm Juggernaut offers a lot of kind of mid-range lane lockdown potential, and you can flood a lane, you can then push their cards off so that you can lock down that lane. Sometimes you can sneak a win in that lane pretty easily. Okay, so not bad. So our pool 2 cards are right here. Not a bad haul. I really am kind of surprised that we got Sandman. In my mind, he was still a pool 3. I guess they reduced him down to pool 2 just for some accessibility. But with what else we got, we have a destruction, but we don't have any other good destruction enablers. We have Infinite, but no way to really cheat him onto the board. And if you're not going to cheat him, you really do need something like Sunspot to at least get some board presence on turn 5 when you skip so that you can play him on 6. Swarm, we don't have Collector, which I would really like to have before we build a discard style deck. So that, in my head, leaves the really fun ongoing deck that we built, and it's still pretty viable deep in pool 3. And so I think it'll be really good to run, and it's something that I had a lot of fun running, so I'm really excited to test it out here. All right, so we did come up with a variation of our Sandman deck from our main account. Now, this deck offers quite a bit of utility. It makes good use of dropping Sandman on turn 4 to limit your opponent from doing some big impactful turns 5 and 6. And so the general idea of this deck list is that we want to fill up one lane with our Ebony Maw. So ideally we would get something like Ant-Man on turn 1, drop either a Colossus, an Armor, or a Lizard on turn 2. On turn 3, we would drop an Ebony Maw and something like a Colossus, a Lizard, or an Armor to cap out that lane. Because Ebony Maw is a very high power 1-cost card, but it has the drawback that you can't play this card after turn 3, which is why we want to rush it out on turn 3, and it has the ongoing ability you can't play cards here. So after we drop him, we're not going to be able to directly add cards in that lane any longer. And so if we can push out enough power quickly, the opponent is either going to abandon the lane, or they will sometimes put in just enough power to get right over the power level that we've set, and then we can cap it out and finish it out with a Spectrum, which is going to buff 90% of the cards that we have in this deck, and that would be in that lane. So looking at how we determined what cards to add, first we wanted to look at what our core cards were going to be. So we knew that we wanted to add Sandman, and so we filtered our collection by ongoing. Because we have built this in the past, we knew a general idea. We knew that we wanted to add a lot of low-cost ongoing cards, followed up with a turn 6 Spectrum play to buff up our entire board. And so we also wanted to be able to lean into Sandman. So Sandman being able to be dropped on turn 4, and us doing our turn 3 Ebony Maw, we knew that we didn't want a lot of 3-cost cards in this deck list, because more often than not, our higher priority play is going to be a 2-cost and a 1-cost Ebony Maw on turn 3. And so then after turn 4, after we drop Sandman, ideally, we're going to want to be able to play to curve, whether that be a Namor, a Claw, and then turn 6 a Spectrum, so that we're not losing tempo or potential power by playing only one low cost card after dropping our Sandman. And so then looking at this deck list, we have Angela as a cheap way to, if we don't draw into any of our other combos, we drop her in a lane first. We can then fill up that lane with our low cost cards, being Ant-Man, Nightcrawler, Armor, Ebony Maw, to buff up Angela further and increase our upside in that lane. And then our late game, we wanted high impactful ongoing abilities. So Namor offers a pretty good utility if the opponent is limited to 1 card per turn and we have an empty lane. We can drop Namor. He's going to be a 10 power ongoing card for 4 cost. So that is a pretty good power push on turn 4 or 5, depending on if we drop Sandman. And then on turn 6, we're going to be able to drop Spectrum, which will buff him up by 2 more, making him a 12 power play for 1 card slot, which a lot of times you will get a turn 6 play that doesn't even reach that power level. A Chavez, a Hulk, and a few others that either just barely reach that 12 power or don't reach it at all. And so when we first started drafting this deck, we did have the idea in mind of our core cards, but we filtered to ongoing. We knew our core cards were Ebony Maw, Sandman, and Spectrum, and then the rest were filled in with whatever we really had that fit those criteria. And so we filtered to ongoing. We looked at all of our high priority cheap cards. So Colossus, a pretty good versatile card, Ant-Man, good versatile card in an ongoing deck list. Lizard is our only really questionable one. Lizard, if the opponent caps out that lane and they have 4 cards, he becomes a 2-cost 1 power card, which is really, really poor, but it is going to force the opponent to invest 4 cards there, which, unless they're running a low cost deck, is going to be a little bit difficult. And then looking at our 3-cost cards, we did consider Mr. Fantastic here, just because he's able to impact more than 1 lane for that 3 cost, but we wanted to go with Captain America to offer some power push in the 1 lane that we need him to, rather than kind of spreading it out across the board. And then after 4, we didn't really want very many other 4-cost ongoing cards other than Sandman, because that's going to be our highest priority for this deck list. And then after that, we're going to want to drop to curve if possible. And so things like Devil Dinosaur or Enchantress, Khazar, you don't get a lot of good utility out of them. And so then Namor fits really well into this, being a high power card that you can drop. Claw is a fantastic 5-cost card in an ongoing style deck where you're limited to the number of cards you can play, because he's able to impact more than 1 lane from that 1 card slot. With his ongoing ability, the location to the right has +5 power. And then of course capping it out with the staple of Spectrum. That left us with only 2 fill-in slots that we needed to look for. And so at that point we unfiltered and we looked for some really high impactful low cost cards. Ideally we wanted it to be either 1 or 2 cost, and that's where we settled on Angela and Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is going to be a card that we can either sneak into a Sanctum Sanctorum, lanes that we can't play cards into, or we can even sneak him into an Ebony Maw lane after that lane has been locked down from dropping Ebony Maw there. And then Angela, another good 2-cost card, we're able to drop her and then drop the other cards on top of it. And so even if we drop her after, let's say, an Ant-Man, if we drop her on turn 2, and then on turn 3 we do an Armor and an Ebony Maw, it's a 2-cost 5-power card, which is a good power ratio for a 2-cost card. Alright, and so that is the deck rundown. We are going to go ahead and jump into a few games. I am really excited for this deck list this week. Sandman is not something I was anticipating, so I'm incredibly excited to be able to run him. I probably will use this week to probably climb quite a bit, because this is going to be a really strong deck in pool 2 and into pool 3, and then just use this time to grind out boosters so that we can use some of the 4,200 credits that we already have and the other ones that we'll gain throughout the week as we complete daily and weekly challenges. Okay, so first up we have Jasmine, and we do draw into a couple of our low cost ongoing cards, so we're going to be able to add them onto the board. The only downside with miniaturized lab here is that if we do draw into our Sandman, it's going to be really hard to cap out the location because we're not able to add cards in miniaturized lab on turns 3, 4, and 5. So I think with this one, we're actually going to play it into the unknown here. We know that we're going to be able to give some pretty big power pushes in our Claw. So if we need to drop it into miniaturized lab and push it over, or here to push it over, we're going to get some decent power push there. And then the hub gives us Blade, which doesn't offer us a lot of utility. I think instead we're going to drop our armor here. And then if we can draw into Ebony Maw next turn, that's going to be perfect. That's going to be exactly what we want, so that we can drop either Lizard or Angela plus Maw on turn 3. That would be the most ideal play line we could get. And so then Stark Towers here. So after turn 5, all cards are going to get a +2 power bonus. So that gives them extra incentive to play in that location, meaning they will probably cap it out. But we are going to go ahead and go with the same play line anyways. And then we don't want to play Blade, because Blade will discard one of our cards. And we don't want it to discard our high priority curve cards in our Claw or our Spectrum. And so then we are going to lock that in. It does look like they drop a few cards into the hub here. And so we are going to get some decent upside in Stark Tower. Maybe if we're lucky, we won't have any issues, but we're going to go ahead and drop an Angela, a Colossus. I think we will likely drop our Claw into the hub next turn. And then depending on what it looks like and where we need that power push, either Spectrum into the hub or Spectrum into Stark Tower to cap it out to get the bonus from Ant-Man here. And so they just drop a Wolverine. They do only have one card in hand, so it may be difficult for them to cap out this location. And at least that's what we gotta. At least that's what we're going to kind of hope for. And so I think we do go with the Claw play into the hub, and they drop a White Tiger, which does push and cap out this location. And so now we're going to be able to calculate where or if we need power. And so unless they have a blue Marvel, which is kind of a weird fit for this deck list, then all we have to do is drop our Spectrum, which is going to give us 4 power in this lane with the ongoing card buff. And so that will push us up over this power level, unless they drop and discard 2 cards here to buff up their Morbius, but I don't think that is very likely on the last turn. I think more likely they are going to try to push power into Stark Tower, and I think we're going to be able to sneak and get that upside here with our Spectrum. I don't think we have to worry about the hub. I think we have that one locked down. And so getting the additional buff from Ant-Man for having the capped out lane, and then they drop an Odin, which we know is not going to be enough. It is going to win them miniaturized lab, but we're not competing for that one anyways. We well exceed their power level in Stark Tower. After all of the buffs come through, we do beat them in the hub. And so we come in for a pretty big first game 4-cube victory against what looks like a non-bot. So we're getting into non-bot territory, finally. Last week was a struggle against all of the bots that we were facing. And so hopefully this is a good sign of things to come. All right, so next up we have Lindsay. And for the first time, we do have our Ebony Maw here. That is not Ebony Maw. Now, for the first time, we have our Ebony Maw here. And so if we can draw into like some of our lower cost combo pieces, I know we didn't have another 1 cost to play initially, which is one of the biggest ways that we can cap out the lane. But if we can maybe draw into one of the other combo pieces, and so we get Nakia here, which is going to be a pretty decent card, but it's kind of hard to slot in. As a 3-drop card, us having the higher priority Ebony Maw, it does become a little bit difficult to drop. So I think instead, what we're going to do is we are going to drop our Angela. And it looks like they played Angel into Murder World, so they're going to end up losing that power as well. So we may be going up against the bots, but I am encouraged by the fact that we at least had a game against a human, because for the first 30 or 40 ranks, typically it is all bots, and that gets very, very okay. And so they dropped an armor, which is going to save us. Because Starlight Citadel is going to change the position of each location after turn 4. So never mind. It wouldn't switch before that. So it wouldn't be an issue. But we are going to drop our Lizard. We're going to drop our Ebony Maw. And then next turn, we may drop our Namor into one of the empty lanes. We can cap out this lane with a Claw if we need to push power into the side. It just depends on what we draw. If we draw Sandman, actually we can't drop Claw here because Ebony Maw, of course. And so if we draw into Sandman, that'll be good. But we do draw into our Nightcrawler, so we're going to be able to potentially drop Nightcrawler and then move him over if we needed an extra power push over here. But I think instead we're just going to drop for now our Namor into the Citadel. That is going to allow us to have a 10 power lane pretty early on for very few cards invested. And then 16 power in and of itself is hard to compete with, so they may just shy away from trying to play cards there. Unless they have some really big cards like maybe Destroyer, but that's going to be really difficult as well. Because then they would want to play it in a lane that's not protected by armor. And so in Murder World, they do have us beaten right now. We can't drop our Claw here. We can drop him here, but I don't know that we need the extra power push into the Citadel. So it may be more so that we do something like, do we start building up this left lane instead? And then if we draw into our Spectrum, that's going to buff up all of our cards except for Angela. And then if not, we can always do a Claw and a Nightcrawler to try to win this one and this one, and maybe give this one up. Because if we play a card into Murder World, that's going to reduce his power by 5. So we're going to have to invest a lot of resources to come up over and get that 4. It looks like a 4 gap, but really if we play any other cards, it is a 9 gap. And now it's even further. After the Nova goes off, I still don't know that they can compete here. We just have to be able to put up a match against them in the hub, and I don't know that we have it, but I also don't know that we don't, because this is going to be a 6, 7, 8 power play here, and we're going to push power over here. Like if they just drop a Chavez, which they might, then they end up stealing this win, but it really depends on what resources they have at their disposal. So I do think it's worth trying, and because we were able to shy away from and push enough power, we did end up sneaking away the win. It is only 1 cube, so not as good as 4 or 8 obviously, but a win is a win, and I think we're going to enjoy farming boosters with this deck. It's very satisfying to play. There's a lot of kind of different routes that you can play. Even if you don't draw into your Sandman or your Ebony Maw, you can do a lot of cool things to push quite a bit of power pretty easily. Alright, so next up we have Roderick, and starting off we do have our Ant-Man, we have Colossus armor, so if we can draw into our Ebony Maw, and this is going to be the same thing as last time, we're going to play him into the unknown, just because we do want to cap out the location with our small cards, especially with Ant-Man. We want to be able to cap out the miniaturized lab, and as it is, we're not able to do that with miniaturized lab being locked down on turns 3, 4, and 5. Ooh. And then Central Park, it does give us the kind of boost to make sure we're able to cap out that location. And so what I'm going to do, instead of Colossus here, I think we play Armor. That way we can protect our Ant-Man, our Squirrel, and then on turn 3, we're going to be able to protect our Ebony Maw as well. And then it's going to buff up our Ant-Man. We're going to have quite a bit of upside in this lane, as long as it's not like a negative lane, like, I don't know, Bar with no name, then we should be good here. If not, then it's a very fast retreat. Oof. So District X is a tough one because it will replace our deck with just 10 random cards. And so it becomes very, very sporadic, very chaotic. We don't know what we're going to end up with. And so I think I still just played a curve for now. I think Colossus is going to be a little bit better than Angela here. And Hawkeye is just a little bit too unimpactful. You have to go through an extra hoop just to get him a 1 cost 3 power card, which is not great. And if we wanted to pull the old swapperoo on him, we can always pull our highest power card over in Ebony Maw into Central Park here. And then we could sneak in a card over here next turn. Is that the play we want to go with? I don't know. Otherwise, we have Angela and Hawkeye. I think it's just random enough that that's what we want to do. It does leave it susceptible to something like a Killmonger or an Elektra, but that would destroy their Rocket Raccoon. Ooh, they have a Ghost Rider. Oh, never mind. It's District X. I thought they were deep into Pool 3 and they had a Ghost Rider that they just like smashed onto the board. Oh, what a beautiful top deck in a Patriot. So Patriot is going to have the ongoing ability, which kind of helps our cause here if we were able to draw into Spectrum, but your cards with no abilities have +2 power, and so that is going to hit all of our squirrels here. So typically not a great card, but it is going to give us a little boost in Central Park and District X here. Obviously, it's not as big as the Ebony Maw in this lane, but I think it still offers a decent amount of utility. And so they have 11. We know that they're not going to be able to come up over our power level here. And so then we draw into Red Skull, which is a really high power card with 14 power at a 5 cost. He is a pretty good pull 3 card, but he has the ongoing ability, which also it seems like all of our cards continued that ongoing trend. But Red Skull has the ongoing ability, enemy cards at this location have +2 power. So if they fill up this lane, we're going to give them a +8 boost, which reduces the 14 power benefit that we get out of this card down to 6. And so we know that to win this lane, they're probably going to drop 2 cards to fill up this lane. We will win this one, probably lose District X, and then it comes down to a coin flip in Miniaturized Lab. Never mind, no it doesn't. So that is a 3 in a row. We do get the boosters, which we're not gaining a lot of cubes because we're not snapping aggressively just yet. We're wanting to be able to kind of showcase the entire gameplay and how the deck will play out. But we are taking the booster grind while we can. And then we're going to be able to use that to increase our collection log level drastically next turn, maybe even getting towards the end of pool 2 by the next free-to-play video. All right, so next up we have David, and we do get Mojo World as our first location, and so we know that we're going to be able to cap out the lane. Ooh, and they discard an Iron Man. That's unfortunate. I think David is a bot more than likely, but that's okay. We will take bot victories at this point. So we know we're going to be able to cap out Mojo World. We're going to want to drop Ebony Maw on turn 3, and we draw into almost the perfect hand to do that. The only thing that would be better than Nightcrawler would have been Ant-Man. Angela would have been better as like a Colossus or maybe even a Lizard, but Angela's not bad either as long as she's our first 2-drop, because that's going to make her a 2-cost 5-power card, which is going to be pretty competitive for the 2-cost slot. And so then they are going to, and they have a discard deck, but they discard a Swordmaster. They're running pretty low on cards, so it's going to be hard for them to compete with these other lanes with us. And we know that we're going to be able to drop Ant-Man on 4 if we need to, but if they're running that low on cards, maybe we opt not to. And we just go with something like a Namor, and then we stack cards in Savage Land to finish the game off. Here we are going to cap out our Mojo World, so they know that they're going to have to at least push that many cards or that amount of power into the lane to be competitive and to win. And so they still only have 1 card in hand left, and we have a 10 power lead over them currently. And then if we get a Spectrum to drop on the last turn, that will be increased as well. So I think this turn we are going to just drop our Namor into Titan. That's going to give us a 10 power lane for 1 card, which is phenomenal. This early on with the limited resources, 10 power in 1 lane is crazy, because later on you have to worry about them sending like green goblins into your lane or rocks with a debris. This early on you really don't have to worry about that as much. So you can pretty consistently push 10 power with your Namor. And I think he's a very underrated card at this point. So they still only have 1 card. I don't think it benefits us to drop a Sandman for this game. We're just going to drop our Captain America here. Hope that we get Spectrum to cap out this lane next turn. And that should give us enough push to win these 2 lanes, possibly all 3. Captain America is going to be a pretty decent card for Savage Land. He's going to buff them up by 1, but they do have over our power level in Savage Land currently, but we, of course, have over their power level in the other lanes. Unfortunately, it's a Colossus. We do not draw into our Spectrum, but I think we let it play out. They're going to have to play a card here and then here as well if they want to hold this one down, or here and here if they want to try and swing this lane. It becomes a lot of resources to invest pretty quickly, and I think we have a decent shot. So they only play into Mojo World. So if that is the only lane that they win, which they do by 1, we still, and I think, yeah, they only had 2 cards, and so that is the only lane that they win because they invested the 6-cost Apocalypse there. And so this early on, discard style decks, and even if this was a bot, this early on discard style decks are really difficult to run because of the inconsistency of if you're going to hit that right card with your discard cards and that sort of thing. But it could have been ran a little bit more optimally. Lady Sif could have guaranteed a discard of Apocalypse if used correctly. But overall, we will take a win. That is 4 in a row. I think the next one we're gonna snap it out and try for an 8-cube victory to finish out this video. Okay, so next up we have Holly, and in the first turn is the location that gives you rocks. I want to be able to say that, but I don't know that I'll ever be able to, that location. And so I'm gonna drop Angela into Wakandan Embassy because she did get the bonus. From that, we are going to be able to increase the upside when we drop Lizard, Colossus, maybe Ebony Maw. So they do have a Colossus as well. And so this turn, we do want to drop our Ebony Maw. The sewer system is going to reduce the power level of additional cards that we drop there. So do we want to do something weird and go with a high power push of Lizard, Ebony Maw into sewer system, knowing that we will only get a reduction of 2, they will probably get more, and then that leaves us the ability to cap out our Angela lane, get some more upside there. We could drop Claw to push power over if we need to, and it protects us from the Gila. Okay, and so they drop a Koye. We are probably not going to play any cards into this first location, at least until maybe the last turn. But if we drop Sandman here, then it would be more beneficial for us to not drop them there at all. But I think instead of Sandman, do we go with this play instead? That will leave us one space open for like a Claw, or Namor could be played here, and then Spectrum could be capped out here. I think giving the Spectrum and knowing that we're going to get a +4 bonus to the +2 to each of these cards on turn 6, it may be better than just limiting our play potential. Oof, such bot-like behavior, my friend. So they buffed up a rock. That is a very scary buff, strong rock. And we do draw into our Claw. So we do know we're going to be able to buff this lane up by 6 with our Spectrum. We're going to push additional power into the sewer system, making it harder for them to win this one. And we're going to get an additional 2 power from the Angela play here. I think this play line gives us the absolute best chance to win. And they're pushing a lot of power into this location that we have no intention of fighting for. So we now will drop our Spectrum. That is going to push us way up over this power level. I don't see any play line that they have that could give them the win. A Shang-Chi here, we're protected by armor. And Enchantress here doesn't really hurt us that much. Same thing here. I just don't. Okay. And so whenever you snap on turn 5 against a bot and they have no possible chance to win, they will retreat. And so if you get a mission that says make your opponent retreat and all you're playing against is bots, try to have a really big power push play, and then on turn 5 snap, and then whenever you end the game, they will most likely retreat on you, which is what we found out here. With this win, we are going to go ahead and end the video here. We are really, I am really excited to see how far we can push our rank, our collection this week between this free-to-play video and our next release. We are going to have, I think, some big upgrades in the next video, and I'm pleasantly surprised that we were able to build a Sandman deck this early on. I wasn't expecting Sandman until we reached pool 3, but getting him early is like a little bonus, a little nice surprise, because we were able to pull out a pretty decent list. I feel like with this list, the core requirements are going to be your Sandman, your Ebony Maw, and your Spectrum. And so without Ebony Maw, it's hard to push enough power to guarantee or give yourself the biggest upside to win that lane after you lock it down with Sandman and buff it up with Spectrum. But Ebony Maw is just such a massive card that it's really hard to compete with if you can have enough power there early. But with that being said, I am going to go ahead and end this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you're still enjoying these free-to-play or lower collection style decks and style videos, because it does give me kind of a change of scenery, a change of pace, because it's been a while since we've been facing decks that don't have access to like some crazy combos, or since we've been facing pool 2 priority decks that are running a majority of pool 2 and pool 1 cards and just a handful of pool 3. So it is fun to kind of come back and see this play style and see if we're able to play it better than what we did whenever we were first here, and just re-experience the excitement of pulling different cards and then making your deck lists out of what you have available. If you are enjoying this video, please let me know in the comment section down below. If you're enjoying the video, please give it a like. It helps the channel grow, expand. It helps the video get out to a wider audience so that they can watch and enjoy as well. But as always, I appreciate each and every one of you for sitting through the video, for enjoying the content. This channel would be nowhere near as successful as it is without you guys. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and end the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.